You made me. You know who I am. You created all things, have all powers in your hands. My life I live for you. My life I give to you. There's nobody greater. Nobody greater.
With my hands lifted up, my voice will sing your praises. Nobody greater. Nobody greater. With my mouth I will sing. I'll tell the world of your goodness. Nobody greater. Nobody greater.
We bow down to you. We give you all the glory. Mold us in your image. Make us after your heart. Lord, we love you. We'll give you praise. Nobody greater. Nobody greater. Oh,
My hands lifted up,
my voice.
will sing your praises. Nobody greater.
Nobody greater.
Nobody greater.
Nobody
My
greater.
mouth I will sing.
And Lord,
I'll
praise.
tell the world of your goodness. Nobody greater.
Nobody greater. With your praise.
My hands lifted up, my voice will sing your praises. Nobody greater.
Nobody greater. Nobody greater.
My mouth I will sing.
Okay.
I'll tell the world of your goodness. Nobody greater.
Nobody.
Nobody greater.
Oh.
Who can stand
Yeah.
before his throne?
Nobody greater.
Nobody greater.
No.
Nobody greater than you. Who can stand?
Baby strong.
Happened this past Saturday night at Chipotle in the Navy Yard. And what we're seeing increasingly across the district is not only unacceptable, it is violent, it is dangerous, and it is illegal. And I am here to tell you it is going to stop. And parents, I'm talking about you now. This is a different scenario than any other time in the history of the district because we are looking beyond those individuals who are committing the crimes, irrespective of how old they are. And we're looking at the parents to make sure that they understand that they are responsible for the upheaval that is going on in this district that is impacting everyone who lives here. I was at a doctor's appointment at 8 o'clock this morning, and the doctor was concerned about what's going on in the district. This is across the board. This is something that we should all be interested in making sure ends. And trust me, I'm going to do my part. This kind of thing is destroying the quality of life in the district. The residents are finding it extremely difficult to enjoy public parks and spaces as well as waterfront areas. And the residents are starting to feel like these out of control teens are taking away their happiness and their quiet enjoyment.
Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of I'm Out of the Box. And I am your host, Apostle T. Roy Jenkins. Listen, everybody, take the time now. Like, tag, share, invite, let everybody you know that I'm Out of the Box is on. Today we have a great episode. We have a special guest with us today, and this conversation is going to be explosive. But listen, subscribe, because every time an episode is uploaded, you will be notified. We just played a clip of a press conference that was held by Judge Jeanine Pirro. Now, Judge Pirro is the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, yes, in Washington, D.C., and she was appointed to that position by President Trump. Now, I have followed her career for a number of years, right? And she seems to be pretty okay on some issues that I also am involved in. However, when you support public policy, Judge Pirro, listen, when you support public policy that marginalizes Black youth by stripping away monies that have been allocated for programs to help them and to keep them safe and to educate them, and then turn around and say now, as a result of everything that's going on, you say now, oh, we're going to put the parents on notice. Judge, you have become an enemy to us. Okay. You support public policy that marginalizes Black youth. It doesn't help Black youth. What we're seeing now is the outcome. What we're seeing now is the result. What we're seeing now is the sum of all of these policies that have been enacted. So, you can take that somewhere else. All right. Let's get into our subject today. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I'm so happy to have my friend and brother, Wayne Harris, with us today. He's an educator. He's a good brother. I've known him a long time. Yes, before I even had a mustache and a goatee and a beard and all of that. And I had hair, y'all. We go way back. But this brother has been doing some fantastic things in our community. He's an educator. He has his master's degree. And listen, we're in for a treat. So I want to welcome to our audience, Brother Wayne Harris. Let's give him some applause. I'm the only one that's on, so I'll clap. I'm represented. Yes, my brother. How are you today?
I'm great. Just doing the work, I'm actually on a high after watching that game last night. I just floated to the office, but I'm doing great.
Yeah, and you and I, we were Knicks fans in public school.
Absolutely. Back in the Dick Barnett days and the Bill Bradley and the Bush. Right. Being the Dream and Willis Reed.
And of course, that was the last time they won the chip. But we not going to talk about that today.
Right.
Brother, tell me about your educational background.
Well, as you know, had an amazing start at PS 260, little school in East New York, right there on Williams Avenue. I was in a very special class amongst some very special young people. You being one of them. What was interesting is that I grew up right across the street, and so I would go to the school building, and I was the only guy from across the street, from the projects across the street, that was in these classes, which was an interesting dynamic in itself. And that's how I met you and all the homies and Garnett, Steve Rogers, because you guys were bussed in for this special program. So I had the luxury of being from the hood, right there where the school was, but meeting new people who became lifelong friends and really helped me expand in thought and in other activities. So I started at PS 260. I was there from kindergarten to the 6th grade. Elementary schools ended in the 6th grade back then. Then from there, I went to IS 211, middle school 211, which is a little further in Canarsie, which is a little interesting. Then I went to Canarsie High School for a little while. Then I wound up going to Tilden High School, and that's where I graduated from Tilden. Then I bounced around, trying to figure life out. Went to John Jay for a little while. I was going to be a lawyer, and then I had a big gap between continuing my education. I was out on the street for a little while, and then I wound up. I started entering, really finding myself, and really wanted to get into the helping profession. There was some traumatic incidents that happened in my life that I was a witness to and were involved with. And I made this conscious decision that I wanted to be a part of the solution instead of being part of the problem. And then I remembered things that my mother told me from day one. My mother used to always say, boy, I was out there doing my thing. She said, "Boy," she always called me boy, boy.
Mhm.
That's okay. I did my job. She said, I had to train the child in the way he should grow. And when he's older, he will not depart from it. She said,
Right.
when you're younger, you're going to depart from it. She said, but when you get older, you're going to return back to that foundation I gave you. As sure as water is wet. As I got a little senior in my years, a little older, I really returned back to the foundation. My mother was a helping lady. She was Nana. She was Nana of the block. And every Tom, Dick, and Harry would be in my house, getting a meal, needing a place to stay, needing a coat. And that was my teething ring, cutting my teeth on this work. Was observing my mom. And I returned back to that. I said, yeah, I want to be a part of the solution. So I
Right.
started working in group homes, etc. And wound up where I am now.
Well, I'm going to say something to you. And of course, we talked about this privately. But when we were in public school 260, I was going through quite a bit. And you, along with another brother, you guys were like my guardian angel. And I don't know how I made it those 3 years without you guys. And of course, like you mentioned, the class that we were in a specialized program for music. And but our conversations and our during lunchtime and then even in the classroom, our conversations were very conscious. Of course, you had to be conscious back then. If you wasn't conscious, then you were like a minus. And we discussed current events, Malcolm X, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall. One of these days, hopefully, I could get together with those of us that are still here and kind of kick it again, because those were some very, very deep conversations that we had. All right. Now, one of the things that you mentioned in your bio, and what I wanted to really discuss today, was your involvement with the youth in the criminal justice system and substance abuse. Now, I noticed that you worked along with kids that had been suspended and were brought back into the educational system. So Wayne, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. At some point, I accepted a position at the school called Community Prep High School. It's in Manhattan, and they were short-staffed, and they were really hard-pressed to find quality folks. And I was like, well, why are you so? The principal was literally like begging me to work there. I'm like, what's the issue here, man? And he worked exclusively with young people who were on Rikers Island, who were soon to be released, and they needed to continue their education, but we needed to allow them to transition, allow them to come home, get stabilized, continue to go to school, create an educational plan, figure out a career trajectory before they were placed in a community school. You gotta remember, this was a school, we were located on 28th Street, Manhattan. Cats were just coming home from Rikers Island. They might have, their community was in East New York or Cypress Hills or in the Bronx. And so we was like a transitional educational program that did more than just the 3 R's. We also taught, we had sessions, we had group sessions, we provided individual sessions that was focused on reducing recidivism, working to eliminate the behaviors that caused them to offend in the first place. So we taught about things, we taught about restorative practices, how to repair the harm, and how to repent for a lot of the things that you may have done. We help young people recognize their culture and how the culture, the language, may have been a contributing factor to some of the decisions that they've made. And we really gave them confidence to really find themselves and be comfortable with being who they are, without having to impress and fall victim to the status quo. So many of our young people, they would come to us. We would deal with their probation officers, their parole officers. We stood up in court many times. Many of our young people, unfortunately, recommitted certain acts, and we would give testimony and statements and thoughts about the progress that they were doing in our school. And then many of our young people, we helped transition back to a community school setting, like their neighborhood school setting.
Right.
And we continue to support them, make sure that they're doing well and that they're successfully transitioning into life.
Well, Wayne, let me ask you this. Many of the young people that you worked with during that time, how stable were their households?
It ranged. We had young people who came from model households, 2-parent households, fully parents employed, a lot of only child, a lot of young people with their own children. And then, of course, we had young people from the most severe circumstances. The traditional and the stereotypical broken home, young people that were literally taking care of themselves, young people that may have been in foster care. I had a lot of young people that were in foster care back then. A lot of young people that were connected to families that were chronically homeless, that were going in and out of shelter, or doubling up with families to avoid going into shelter. So it really was a full gamut and a full range. And that just reinforced, the practice of having to meet young people where they are and not using a cookie cutter approach. Because you really had to individualize your support for each young person that came.
Now, the program that you worked in, was it subsidized or funded by the state, or was it really like private, donations or charities?
Yeah, that was a city-funded program. I was working with the Department of Education at that time. It was in what we called the District 79. What did we used to call it back in the day? 600 schools. Remember that?
600 school. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I worked under the whole district that only supported 600 schools. Like, I had no desire to work with schools where everything was going sweet. Like, zero desire.
Uh-huh. You wanted to be where the action was, where the help really was needed.
Totally.
Yeah, I had some experience with the 600 schools with my son, and this is leading into this question that I was going to ask you before we go into the next segment. A lot of children were behavioral. They had marginal behavioral problems. Maybe talking out in class or what have you. And it was very, they were very quick to suspend the child. When we were in school, you had to do something like really, really, really egregious to be suspended, and that was even just for 3 days. But by the time my son was in school, all you had to do was, drop your pencil, so to speak, and they were ready to pack you up and send you to the 600 school.
Yeah, so true. And I myself went through that. When I left you guys in 2016, in middle school in 2011, after you develop a reputation for attracting the most severe consequences possible, you getting that severe consequence. No longer is it about bringing them in my office and let's have a conversation. It really becomes rubber stampish and assembly line-ish, and we just suspend. Preparing us for something else.
Uh-huh.
Preparing us, they actually created like a school to prison pipeline.
Right.
So we started the most severe copy, and the language when you're suspending a child is consistent with what happens in the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
We talk about who offends. We talk about a victim. We talk about penalties. We talk about consequences. We talk about sentence. We talk about recidivism. These are the same language we use for young people that are being chronically and severely suspended. We're preparing them for something.
You know, it's really something. My son also, Wayne, went through that. You know, yeah, I wound up doing the New York State correctional tour.
Yeah.
You know, I would leave my house in the morning and get on the New York State Thruway. I would take the Major Deacon. I would get in the far left lane because I knew where I was going. Get on that New York State Thruway, man, and I did the tour, brother.
Yeah.
I did the tour, and if someone had told me that my child would be going through that or involved in that, I would have been like, nah, the devil is a liar, not my child. You know, but what happened to my son could pretty much happen to anybody, you know, because it's a system and there's profits to be made. You know, I was listening to this cat from Florida and how he was speaking about this young man that had been convicted of a serious crime. And they said, well, you know, he's facing the death penalty. And the man said, no, we don't want him to have the death penalty because we want to put him behind bars for the rest of his natural life. And we're going to work him like a slave in the cotton field. Now I'm paraphrasing, but you know, yeah. And so, okay, so this state program, state sponsored program, do you know if it's still in effect?
Actually, it doesn't exist anymore. Community Prep High School no longer exists. Unfortunately, we did some amazing work. We didn't even have metal detectors. We didn't even have metal detectors, man. But we had cats from one gang being released from Rikers, competing gang, sitting in the same circle, talking about the harm that they caused in the community. You know what I mean? And we didn't have metal detectors, and we never had a weapon in it.
Thank God. Yep.
Great work.
Well, I appreciate, you know, the work that you've done, you know, and I'm so enthusiastic about these things that are needed for our children, because now we're seeing the end result of all the stripping away of the programs and the safety nets that were once provided for our community. And, you know, now we're seeing, you know, that things seemingly are out of control. Hopefully, we could help our children, you know, and steer them in the right way. Now you were involved. You created a program called SIMBA, which stands for Safe in My Brother's Arms. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah. Back in 2007, I had read this book from produced by the state, created at the state, and we spoke about how high school age are traveling at riding that freight train along the school to prison pipeline with an enormous amount of speed. High school boys who were, and the other thing to add to it is that these are young people who were experiencing homelessness. They were quickly traveling at school to pick up. In fact, I did a study, Friends Island Academy on Rikers Island. They studied young men who were intaked on Rikers Island in C-74, ARC C-74, and they found that two-thirds of young men who were entering Rikers Island reported being homeless 6 months to a year prior to the incarceration. So this wasn't just a school to prison. It was a pipeline. You know, when you have a pipeline, can't
Right.
nothing get off to the side. It's like a pathway, you know.
Right. A direct push in one direction.
Right.
Mhm.
So I said, well, if that's what that population is experiencing, that's the population that I want to work with. So I created this program December 1st, 2007 was the first day. My peers laughed at me.
Mm.
They said, Sky, you gonna hang out with some homeless high school students? You think they're gonna come to a college on a Saturday morning? Because we would meet at New York City College of Technology downtown. That was our meeting space. And lo and behold, those 35 young men came.
Mhm.
We got their attention. And it really has blossomed and grown enormously.
Well, wait. Let me stop you right here and ask you this. Right. Briefly, what was the overwhelming cause of the homelessness of these youth?
Yeah, it was the poverty. It was the poverty experienced by their guardians, parents and guardians, poor financial literacy, poor budgeting. Some of them were employed; they just hadn't figured out how to manage their resources, and many of them were forcibly evicted. They had gone through evictions, and so the trauma for the young person didn't start when they were evicted. The process to become evicted is usually traumatic in and of itself. So these young people were witnesses to this process happening, and they were being impacted. Their decision-making, their coping skills, was all being impacted by traveling that route. So being forcibly evicted was the single most common denominator experienced by these young people we were supporting.
Wow.
I had young people tell these stories, man, about coming home and seeing a paper on the door. Or I had one young girl who used to tell a story about she was taking a shower and her dad came in there and said, yo, we gotta go. And the marshals was at the door. And they just rushed to grab everything that they own. They had to go to PATH. Now they're in a community where they know nobody, no friends, have to transfer schools, they're in the same land, but it was a foreign land to them, and they had to cope with that.
Mm-hmm. And that sounds scary. When you don't know where you're going to be living, and wow, there are so many things that are going on, and that cause our children to act out in the streets. And before you and I came on, I played a segment of Judge Jeanine Pirro, who was addressing a situation that happened in Washington, D.C. under her jurisdiction, because she's the U.S. attorney now out there, Trump appointed. And she was saying, well, we're going to start holding the parents accountable for what their children are doing. And, like I have said on previous broadcasts, some of these kids are being raised in foster care. Some of these kids don't even have family members or anybody. They're going through it. They're up against it, man. They're dealing with all kind of issues. Our communities are drug addicted, and it's compact poverty. The projects that you and I grew up in are totally different than the projects of today. Wow. But I am so happy.
The other thing, P, is that, but I've met some amazing, absolutely positively amazing young people.
Yeah.
Over these years that have blown my mind. I look at their pedigree, their story, and I got pictures here. I wish you could see my pictures. They're like some amazing young people. All they need for somebody to like do some cliche stuff with them and do something like really corny, like believe in them. That's all they really needed. Positive reinforcement. Man, I would just buy pizza and some beverages and get out of the way and let them
Mhm.
support each other, you know. And that's all they needed was a space that was positive and
Right.
encouraging and laid some foundations for them. And they like my mama used to say, boy, if it don't kill you, it's gonna make you strong. So the trauma that they've been through, once it's channeled in a certain way, you really bring out their brilliance.
All of us, need direction, and like you said, positive reinforcement. Um, Unfortunately, when you watch the news, if it bleeds, it leads, you know. And I talk to my brother a lot about the music industry and how, of course, when hip hop and rap, first began, it was positive, you know, and as it became more and more popular, the only way that you can get a record deal is to exploit, your experiences in the hood, so to speak. And there was some embellishment too, because it wasn't all like that. They talk about different communities, different neighborhoods, like Crenshaw and different things like that, and they show you all the bad, all the hideous, all the different things that's going on in those communities. And then when you get out there, if you ever get a chance to go there, you find, like you say, there's some remarkable young people that are doing some, very, very, very amazing things, but you don't hear about it.
Yeah.
That's not promoted. That's not enforced in our community. All you hear is the shootings and the stabbings and the gangs and the, the abuses that go on. But now you also have a program. You were working with a program for the young girls, right?
Yeah, my amazing young girls. Name of that program is called ASET, ASET. It's an
Right,
acronym. I'm big on acronyms. That means All Sisters Evolving Together.
right, right.
And man, these young girls. And we really just replicate. What happened was I was in a shelter one day, checking up on my guys, and I got cornered. I literally got cornered, backed into a corner where a vending machine. I can see it right now. A vending machine by this group of girls,
Mhm.
and they were like, "Yeah, you come here to check on our brothers. You need to do the same thing for us."
Right.
I said, "Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea."
Yeah.
You know? So it was April of 2008,
Uh-huh.
a little more than a year, that we started the ASET program. And those girls are just, I'm still in touch with all of my young people.
Right.
T-Roy, I got young people that are buying homes now. They pose. They send me the picture when they got the key, the big key. Just had my closing. And then Harris, I went from homeless to homeowner.
Look at that.
I got kids graduating college now, kids in the military. And then I got kids that are just making it,
Uh-huh.
They're really showing up in the world. And I have a bunch of kids who are now working in the education department. I had kids who came to me and said, "Why do you want to be a social worker?" And now they're social workers
Uh-huh.
in the Department of Education. It's just been an amazing experience, and I'm thankful for having been in service to them. Because
Right.
it's truly been being in service and letting them lead me, and really thankful for the ride that they've taken me on. Truly amazing.
Well, brother, we thank you for all your service that you've done down through the years. And, I know firsthand, I knew firsthand that you were going to be something special, because you were a very special part of my life, in my early year. And, I got to play Martin Luther King on stage at the school play, but you the real king, brother.
Thank you, man. We were some dope dudes, man. We were so dope, man. So young.
Mhm. Yep.
It was amazing what we used to talk about and what we did. We had a little special project, man. We were.
Yeah.
And thank you, man. Thank you for being there and helping me grow in areas that I never thought were imagined.
Well, we're going to bring you back on at another point, so we can delve deeper into, some of these things. I'm fulfilling a dream right now that I had, to do this, to shine the light on brothers and sisters that are doing positive things in the community. So we thank you. Thank you so much, man. And I appreciate you. I love you as a brother. All right.
Thank you, my brother. I love you, man. Have a great day.
You too. You too. Thank you.
Okay, peace.
All right, everybody. Listen, look out for next week's program. It's going to be just as insightful, just as important, just as relevant. And I wish all of you to have a great day. God bless you.